Belfast, but not too cold, more around average for the time of year by the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday. See you later.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel. Hello, good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton, and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. Investigations are continuing in California after at least 10 people were killed in a shooting at a Lunar New Year festival. Thousands of people had gathered at Monterey Park near Los Angeles when a gunman opened fire. Another 10 people were taken to hospital, with at least one in a critical condition. Police are looking for a male suspect who fled the scene. They say it's too early to determine his motive. The Labour Party is calling for an urgent investigation into claims the chairman of the BBC, Richard Sharp, helped former Prime Minister Boris Johnson arrange a loan weeks before the then Prime Minister recommended Sharp for the job. The Sunday Times claims Mr Sharp helped Boris Johnson secure a guarantor for a loan of up to £800,000 when he was in financial difficulty in late 2020. Sharp was announced as the government's choice for the BBC position in January 2021. Both men say there was no conflict of interest. Labour and the SNP have called for an independent inquiry. Meanwhile, a cabinet minister has told GB News Nadhim Zahawi has the Prime Minister's support following allegations about his tax affairs. The Conservative Party chairman's admitted he reached a settlement with the HMRC, believed to be almost £5 million following an error over a multi-million-pound shareholding in the polling company YouGov. Labour has called his position untenable, but Foreign Secretary James Cleverly says he believes Mr Zahawi has paid his taxes.
I don't know any more details than what he has already put in the public domain. I don't think it would be right or proper for me to speculate or guess about any further details about his tax affairs. But he has been a successful entrepreneur, building a company which has paid tax, employing people who have paid taxes, and he has himself paid tax, a considerable amount, because he's been successful.
The government says energy firms should stop forcing lower-income households to switch to prepayment meters. The Business Secretary, Grant Shapps, has threatened to name and shame energy suppliers who aren't doing enough to help vulnerable people to pay their bills. The energy companies have also been asked by Mr Shapps to reveal the number of warrant applications they've made to enter the properties. European countries are putting renewed pressure on Germany to authorise the supply of its tanks to support Ukraine. Several countries want to send their German-made Leopard tanks, but need Germany to give it a green light. Latvia, Estonia and Lithuania say Germany, as a leading European power, has a special responsibility in restoring peace on the continent. Berlin insists it's not blocking deliveries and has yet to make a decision about supplying its tanks to Ukraine. Now, at least 300 migrants have arrived in the UK on 8 small boats overnight, making it the busiest day of Channel crossings so far this year. GB News understands a few other boats have also set off this morning but haven't yet made it into the UK. The boats were monitored by French naval vessels, which can only intervene if migrants get into difficulties. Today's arrivals bring the total number of those crossing the English Channel this year to 450. The Environment Minister in Scotland says the use of dogs to hunt and kill wild animals has no place in modern Scotland. Marie McCallan's comments come ahead of next week's vote on the new Hunting with Dogs bill. Since 2002, it's been against the law to hunt a wild animal with a dog, with the new bill expected to close loopholes in current laws. And Buckingham Palace has revealed the Queen Consort will be crowned alongside the King in a break with tradition at the coronation in May. The service will be conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury at Westminster Abbey, followed by a large-scale ceremonial procession. A concert will also take place at Windsor Castle, featuring global music icons. It dispels any speculation King Charles has been planning a low-key coronation. Thousands of events are expected to take place all over the UK, with a bank holiday declared for the Monday the 8th. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now let's return to Nana Akua.
Good afternoon. It is fast approaching 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Is it just me, or are you also thinking, hang on a minute, it seems to be a case of one rule for them and another for us? Nadhim Zahawi, ex-Chancellor, being given a slap on the wrist from HMRC and agreeing to pay an undisclosed amount, which is possibly in the millions, in unpaid tax, which they say he has simply been careless for not paying. Not so fast, buddy. You can't just brush that under the carpet and say that there's nothing to see here. Could you imagine if it was you or me, one of us? I think not. Apparently, Nadhim had some shares in YouGov, a company that he co-founded with his dad. The shares were moved to a firm registered in the tax haven of Gibraltar before being sold sometime between 2006 and 2018 for around about £27 million. By moving the shares before sale, think tank tax policy associates suggest that Nadhim may have avoided some £3.7 million in tax. And this YouGov thing already sounds a bit like a conflict of interest. I mean, how can you be in a government and have the company that they hire to carry out the research? I mean, what's that about? Now, there's no suggestion that any laws have been broken here, just a case of tax avoidance, and there is a big difference between that. So perfectly legal tax avoidance measures, which I believe are created for the rich, and tax evasion, which is often the premise of the uneducated poor. Boris gave Nadeem the job as Chancellor the day before he was forced to resign as Prime Minister, and apparently, as reported in The Observer, civil servants in the Cabinet's Office Propriety and Ethics team had alerted Johnson of the HMRC flag that was over Nadeem before he appointed him. But Boris ignored this. Then Nadeem stabbed him in the back. Touché. Let me read you something. Yesterday, I made clear to the Prime Minister, alongside my colleagues in Number 10, that there was only one direction where this was going, and that he should leave with dignity, out of respect, and the hopes that he would listen to an old friend of 30 years. I kept this counsel private. I'm heartbroken that he hasn't listened and that he is now undermining the incredible achievements of this government at this late hour. No one will forget getting Brexit done, keeping a dangerous anti-Semite out of Number 10, our handling of COVID and our support of Ukraine in its hour of need. Author Nadeem Zahawi. He ends the letter with, "But the country deserves a government that is not only stable, but which acts with integrity. Prime Minister, you know in your heart what the right thing to do is, and go now." Yes, perhaps Nadeem should take his own advice. His position is untenable. So before we get started into the debate, let's see what else is coming up today for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should we splash out on a coronation during a cost of living crisis? Details about King Charles's coronation have been released, revealing a 3-day event filled with pomp, pageantry and even a coronation for the Queen Consort. Now, that's despite wide speculation it could be scaled back. Now, with the country in the grips of a cost of living crisis, should we really be spending money on a coronation? Then at 4:50, it's time for Worldview. Now, at least 10 people have died in a mass shooting in Los Angeles, California, following a lunar celebration where thousands of people came together to celebrate Chinese New Year. Now, according to reports, the shooter was male and he is currently on the run. The host of the People's Politics podcast, Paul Duddridge, will be live from LA this hour. Then at 5, it's this week's Outside. The General Secretary of the Workers' Union of England, Stephen Morris, will be live in the studio talking us through the mass strikes that have gripped the nation. His union has also represented celebrities including reggae artist Matt Hoy. So have you ever felt bullied in the workplace or neglected by your bosses but don't know how to deal with it? Or have you been dismissed unfairly? Stephen will be able to answer all your burning questions later on in the show. That's on the way in the next hour. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email tvviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at GBNews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Right, Christine, you sort of did a sort of double blink there. It's good to see you, Christine.
I assure you I'm wide awake and fizzing to go, so don't panic.
No,
I'm not going to fall off my stool.
Well, I'm going to come to you first, actually, with this whole thing with Nadeem Zahawi. And he's not the first, is he? I mean, before that, we had Rishi Sunak, the seatbelt. Then we had the non-dom status. There's been other stuff. I mean...
It just doesn't look good. Now, at this point, none of us know the full details because they haven't been revealed. What I suggest Nadeem does is actually reveal the full details. So then we can all make a judgment based on the full knowledge. At the moment, we are just being told to accept his word for it, that it was all perfectly above board and he's paid everything. Fine, let's see the paperwork. Let's see exactly what's happened. At the very worst, it smells. It may be OK, but it doesn't smell good. And as you say, we've got that. We've got Rishi and his seatbelt, and it's one thing after another, and it's just not a good look for the government. Come clean.
I know what it's like to be in the studio and it doesn't smell good.
Yes, we have to sit with it all the time when you're here.
That is not a reflection on you, Christine.
I just jolly well hope not.
Now, look, I'm self-employed. I have a very successful business, and my accountant does all of my books for me. So when I sell a car, every 3 months, because of my turnover, I have to pay VAT. OK. And then every 12 months, I've got to pay tax for the year before.
Yeah.
There is no way that an accountancy firm could get something so dramatically wrong by the tune of nearly £1 million.
It may well be more than
more than
yeah.
More than that.
So as far as presenting his books is concerned, that could ruin him. That could ruin him, because then he's going to have to claim liability. When I sign off my accounts, I don't know what the hell I'm signing for. My accountant says, OK, Dan, so this is your turnover, this is your profit, here's your... Just sign that. Oh,
Yep.
sign that.
But
So someone is liable.
No, but
you're not Chancellor of the Exchequer.
He was Chancellor.
He was Chancellor
No,
of the
but
Exchequer.
in layman's terms, I'm trying to explain how accountancy works.
But let me explain to you in layman's terms how the HMRC works. Doesn't matter if if you feel the accountant went wrong, you're the one that's liable.
No, you're so right. You are so right. It stinks, it smells, and don't forget, he was in charge of a government body that ensures that everyone pays a fair rate of tax.
Exactly.
I mean, you couldn't make it up.
And I must say, what you just read out, that quote from his statement about Boris, I mean, really, talk about, you know, what you do and say comes back to haunt you. That was very telling.
But also, I just want to say something that shouldn't be controversial, but I think is going to prove controversial. People who criticise what's that biblical expression? He without sin cast the first stone.
Yeah.
Lots of self-employed people who deal heavily in cash will be screaming at the television saying, you're a fraudster, yet they don't declare everything. I promise you...
We don't know whether there's any fraud, and apparently it's a tax avoidance scheme, not tax evasion. So, you know, it's perfectly legitimate.
We have tax evasion when people refuse to deal electronically. You go to Chinatown in London. Last time I was in Chinatown in London, they actually boast paying cash gets you 10% discount. Why do you think that is? That's because they don't put it through the books. There's lots of hypocrisy. No, it's true, Nana. Why would you... Come on, be fair with me.
No, they might just prefer handling cash. I mean, you know...
But why would you offer 10% discount? Why would you want an inducement?
No, but there are lots of cash businesses that, you know, that don't...
Well, they're at it. That's what I'm saying. They're at it.
But none of that is irrelevant to Nadeem Zahawi.
Exactly.
He was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He's a very, very senior Tory politician. He's now the chairman of the party.
Yeah.
What some little business in Chinatown does is frankly irrelevant.
It's widespread across the country.
Well, that's not the point.
It is, because I said it's a hypocrisy. So his critics will be hypocritical.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear you.
You're right. It's a tiny scale.
I'm criticising.
Yeah, but you're not self-employed who deals in cash.
How do you know?
Well, I know, Christine.
No, I'm not.
Well, there you go, then.
He's in a bedroom going,
but you're right. It's not what we're talking about. But what I'm trying to do is just introduce and shine a light on people who are screaming at him. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, because HMRC will come for you, and there's no, you know, I just did that, I was just careless. It's like, well, there's a fine there.
That's right.
It's not like you can negotiate with HMRC, and we don't know enough, but it sounds like they're negotiating, and I'm just thinking, well, how can it be OK for you to do that? And I don't know whether he's done anything that's wrong. We haven't got the full details. If he hasn't, he should just give us all the information, because he's a public servant.
That is precisely the point. We cannot judge because we don't know the facts. If he's done absolutely nothing wrong, I've always said, if you're innocent of something, if you're accused of an affair, whatever it is, put everything out there, be upfront and let us see the facts. Because the difference between evasion and avoidance is the width of the wall of Pentonville Jail. Evasion
How do you know? Have you been?
Of course.
No, she's right.
I have visited,
But if it is evasion, then HMRC must explain. They must prosecute him.
Yeah.
They must.
No,
so it's a clever... if he can save £1 million on tax, then it's one hell of a clever scheme, or it's evasion.
We would like the Chancellor to be clever, wouldn't we? But within the law.
But what we know, what we know is that basically he moved, before he sold the shares, he moved the company to the tax haven of Gibraltar, sort of thing. So therefore, any sort of potential tax may have been mitigated or minimised. And that's as much as we know. We don't know the rest of it.
But if he did that, and it sounds as though he did that, I don't know. That's probably perfectly legal.
Well,
I don't know.
But is it moral?
Exactly.
That's the difference.
Oh, well.
Because they've been chasing people like Amazon and the other ones, saying that you're morally obliged to pay it.
Yeah.
Although, you know, it's the law, and a lot of us are using all the different tax loopholes to evade it ourselves, like a non-dom status and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, you know, that began to start the rot, didn't it? Mrs. Rishi's non-dom status. I mean, you elect to be non-dom. It isn't something that's forced upon you, and she elected to be non-dom. Anyway, she's put all that right. So perhaps Nadeem can put all this right.
Well, yeah, that it's just...
We just want to be told, that's all.
Yeah, and they seems he should come out with that immediately. There shouldn't be a delay.
The quicker he does it, the better.
Why has he not come out with it today? We should know today.
It's a little bit like when the Prime Minister was being questioned about, do you actually have an NHS doctor? And he delayed, he procrastinated, he delayed. Just stinks. It just stinks.
And then he said he's registered with an NH thing, but then he said that he has independent healthcare, which is private.
He should have just said that.
He should have just said,
a week
I
earlier.
use private healthcare.
So Nadeem Zahawi needs to just get this out in the open.
Well, that's what he said, but this is what
he thinks he has, I think.
May I just add one thing? Do you know he wrote nasty, threatening legal letters to journalists?
Oh, yes, actually, I did actually see that in the Observer today, that there was a piece about someone where there'd been a message of a warning to that journalist. Yes, I did read that.
I heard the interview with the journalist. And he was given legal warning that he best just shut up about this. It was defamatory.
Well, I mean, look, the exact wording, I don't know, but I did read
around
that myself.
That
was in the paper.
I don't think he's a very nice piece of work, let's just put it like that.
Well, I've never met him, so I don't know.
Based on what?
Oh, quite a lot.
Oh, my God, this is defamatory.
No, it isn't.
Advert break.
I just said not very nice.
Well, she said it's not very nice.
Nice is about the most harmless word you can use. I chose it very carefully.
No, that's true, but what caused you to say it's not very nice?
Yeah, OK, the two of you. Right, firstly, so what are your thoughts on this? Welcome aboard if you've just joined us. This is coming up to 19 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. Now, Nadeem Zahawi released this statement yesterday. 22 years ago, I co-founded a company called YouGov. I'm incredibly proud of what we achieved. When we set it up, I didn't have the money or the expertise to go it alone, so I asked my father to help. In the process, he took founder shares in the business in exchange for some capital and his invaluable guidance. Following discussions with HMRC, they agreed that my father was entitled to founder shares in YouGov, though they disagreed about the exact allocation. They concluded that this was a careless and not deliberate error. I chose to settle the matter and pay what they said was due. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should we splash out on a coronation during a cost of living crisis? King Charles's coronation is set to be a 3-day event filled with pomp and pageantry and even a coronation for the Queen Consort. But with the country in the midst of a cost of living crisis, should the government really fork out millions for such a lavish affair? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell me what you think. You can also tweet at GBNews. I've got a poll up right now. I'm asking you that question. Should we splash out on a coronation during the cost of living crisis? Please cast that vote now. But first, let's go for a break. Back in a moment.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Good afternoon. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Now, don't forget, you can also stream the show live via YouTube. Right now, before the break, I was discussing Nadeem Zahawi and his tax affairs. Let's see what you've been saying. Well, Mary said, could I mention that this is not the first time Nadeem Zahawi has made a mistake of this nature? Don't forget the once used taxpayers' money to pay to heat his stables. Really? I didn't know about that one. Is that right? Chris says, how is this tax return in the news? I thought tax returns were meant to be confidential. Should they be looking for a leak? Well, no, but if you're in the government, right, you're a public servant, so your tax affairs, we need to know, because we want to know where you're getting your money from, obviously. Edward says it is a total disgrace that Zahawi's tax affairs are being discussed without all the facts being laid out by the media. His tax affairs should be private and confidential. Well, not if you're the Chancellor of the Exchequer. That's all very well. Yours and ours will be. But if you're the Chancellor and you were the Chancellor or you're in government, I'm afraid we need to know. Right, OK, so it's time now. Keep those thoughts coming. It's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And anyway, the only reason we haven't got all the facts is because he hasn't given them to us. Right, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. Today I'm asking, should we splash out on a coronation during a cost of living crisis? Now, it's been announced that King Charles's coronation will be a 3-day event filled with pomp, pageantry and even a crowning ceremony for Camilla, the Queen Consort. Now, that'll be between May the 6th and the 8th, and Britain will enjoy a bank holiday weekend of street parties, fly pasts and a special concert at Windsor Castle, headlined by world-famous performers, which means I'll be on there somewhere, I'll be on the bill, as if. Now, the plans dispel speculation that the King's coronation would be a no-frills event, lacking the grandeur of Queen Elizabeth's coronation in 1953. However, at a time when many people are still struggling to pay their energy bills, the decision to spend taxpayers' money on the King's coronation will undoubtedly cause controversy in some quarters. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we splash out on a coronation during a cost of living crisis? Well, to talk about this, I'm joined by aristocrat and socialite Lady Victoria Hervey, former royal butler Grant Harold, former Labour MP Stephen Pound and royal commentator Michael Cole. Right, Michael, I'm going to start with you. So this is going to be a very glamorous coronation. Is it worth spending the nation's money on such an event like this?
Yes, because it's very, very rare, Nana. You have to remember that there have been more solar eclipses in the last 200 years than there have been coronations. The last one was 70 years ago. I was 10 years old at the time, and I remember it vividly. And that was a tremendous worldwide event. And this is going to be a tremendous worldwide event too. It will command the attention of the world. And we don't know how much it's going to cost. But if you, shall we take the London Olympics of 2012, that cost £9 billion. But was it worthwhile? Was it value for money? It certainly was, because in terms of soft power, popularity, prestige, call it what you will, it was a tremendous boost for this country. And even in a normal year, the royal connection is calculated to bring £4 billion into our economy. People love this. They love to come here. They love to bathe in the history of the past. And it's not fanciful for that to happen, because it's rare, it's unique. The last king of Egypt, King Farouk, said before he was overthrown that in 100 years, there'd only be 5 kings left. The kings of hearts, clubs, diamonds and spades, and the King of England. And we are going to see the King of England, Charles III, crowned, and everybody, including those who are living through straitened times, will be enjoying that. And I think it is a time for celebration, and we will all join in.
OK, well, let's see what Stephen Pound has to say about that. I mean, should we be spending money? Cost of living crisis, people are pretty strapped for cash.
Look, we do things properly in this country, or we don't do them at all. And I think we actually have to do this to the way that we've always done it, to a very, very high standard. But what fills me with toe-curling, tooth-grinding, butt-clenching horror is the proposal that this dignified, solemn, actually theological occasion is going to be imbued with choirs representing LGBT groups, all sorts of other groups. Look, the point being, if you're going to try to have a coronation that tips the hat to every single community group, every single nationality, every single single identified group in the country, that way lies madness. The point is that this should be a celebration for the country. We should all be actually going up to it, actually support this.
He's trying to show that this is a diverse country. Lady Victoria Hervey.
It is a dump. We don't need this to prove
No, so what do I think
Well, what
now
do you
about
think?
it?
What do you think about it?
I think it's right. You know, they should be able to splash out. Like, this is a once in a lifetime thing. This is not like something like, you know, happens very often. Yes, people are kind of feeling in the crunch right now, but there's some people that are so against it. Give them back their £2 each or whatever it will cost, you know, if they're that against it. But I think it's definitely worth it. You know, England, we are known for really putting on the best show. And this is what we're known for. And as far as bringing in tourism, and the whole world will be watching.
But what about the woke aspect of it?
The woke aspect, I think just completely ignore the woke aspect. This is about the coronation. And back then, the last coronation, woke did not exist, so I think it should be the same.
OK, Grant, what do you think? Is it worth it? You know, cost of living crisis. What about the people who...
I understand a lot of people obviously concerned about the money that goes into it. I mean, the Queen's coronation 70 years ago, I think, was 1.57 million. And today's money, that's 46 million. But I think, as everyone has said, this is a once in a lifetime, almost once in a lifetime opportunity. It was within the Queen's lifetime. So, you know, coronations, they don't just happen. And obviously, there's a lot of planning, organisation goes into them. So I think for this kind of event, it's money well spent. There's other things I'm sure that money spent on that people got upset about, quite rightly. But with this kind of thing, with a coronation, we should do it right, because that's what we're good at. And the King, I should quickly mention, known him obviously personally at one point, he's not somebody that likes waste. That is an absolute fact. And I can assure you that every penny he will make sure that it's accounted for.
Do you think? Yeah, but what is the argument that a lot of people are struggling right now? And they might look on that and think, well, you know, if the country's got money, then we should really be going to the general public and into their pockets. I mean, what about that argument, Michael? You said it's a big event and everything, but what about for those who are really struggling at the moment to see such a pomp and ceremony?
Well, if you go back to ancient Rome, the ordinary Roman citizen, what did they enjoy? Bread and circuses. Well, there's plenty of circus going to be surrounding this coronation. I don't disagree with my dear friend Stephen Pound, fellow Fulham supporter. We all have our crosses to bear. This is essentially, it is the heart of the monarchy. It is a spiritual occasion. That is the essence of it, the anointing of, by the grace of God, King Charles III, defender of the faith. And that is very important, and that is central to it. But I don't blame the King at all. In fact, I commend him for trying to widen the thing out with this concert. It's not something that I would necessarily want to attend, but it is important to spread the happiness and joy among people. And I think that's a very sensible way of doing it, and making sure that every element of the community is involved. We are an inclusive society. At the top of the agenda is inclusion, and just below that is public appeal. And I think it is going to be, in very many ways, the people's coronation. That's the way he would want to do it. Because what's the alternative? To be exclusive, to exclude people?
Well, no.
Absolutely not.
Well, can I just ask Lady Victoria, do you think that Harry and Meghan should get an invite?
Yes. That is my name. I don't know. This is a bit of a tricky one. Maybe him without her, but I know.
Well, he's the one that's written
But he's the one that's done the spare. Yeah, at the moment, I'm a little undecided about that. I mean, really, he should, because, I mean, he is still, you know, the son of Charles, but I don't know about his behaviour recently.
Well, especially after he's been talking about, you know, his kill count and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's something to be decided, like, as we get nearer to the date, or what his behaviour is going to be like in the next couple of months.
Grant, do you think that perhaps Harry and Meghan should be invited to this?
I think, as Lady Victoria said, it is the son of the king, and on that basis, he should be there. But I am aware, as they'll be aware, that there's a risk that you could even have booing at the coronation, or a lot of unhappy people if they are there. So it's a difficult one to weigh up. I think he should be there, but then she is his wife and technically should be as well. But I'm aware that would cause a lot of unhappiness, and that's something they don't want to do. They will not want that to overshadow the coronation.
Because the thing is, you know that he's going to be
getting information if he does come. That will be in like the next interview that he does, right? It will be like the behind the scenes of the coronation and what happened, and Kate did this and Meghan did this.
Yeah, we can't have any more of that. It'll be spare three. It'll be like a trilogy. It
is a trilogy.
Spare two, spare three.
Yeah.
What about you, Stephen Pound? What do you think? Should they go?
Interestingly, 1953, which I remember fairly well, the Duke of Windsor and Wallis Simpson were both turned up for the royal wedding, but neither of them actually attended. So the Duke of Windsor actually showed some dignity about that. Look, I mean, obviously, the fact is that Fulham are at home to Leicester on the Saturday, has some bearing on this particular matter. But look, I think he has the opportunity to actually be very serious about this and say, this is not about trying to appeal to sort of granulate every single tiny, minute section of society. Just to say, this is something that brings us together. I think if he talks about having all these individual little special interest groups, he's actually disaggregating. He's breaking down the uniformity of society, and he's making a terrible mistake. So do it by all means. Do what we do best in this country. We do brilliant pageantry, but just do it at a lower level. Stop trying to appease every single special interest group. Just get on with it and do it. And there may well be. I'm the same age as Prince Charles, King Charles,
Can I just
so I'm
ask
not
you?
going to be around for much longer. So there could well be another coronation. I mean, obviously not involving me, but in about
Maybe
10
this
years'
one won't
time.
involve
So
you
this
either.
is not
Look, Stephen, yes or no? Should Harry and Meghan come to the coronation?
Absolutely not. Cringe-worthy. As I said, the selfies will just be getting clicked all over the place.
Right, lovely. Thank you for that. Lady Victoria, thank you very much.
Anna,
Yes, go for it. Last word.
Let's be clear that they are invited. It's not a question of whether they.
Well, should they come though?
The king has played.
So is the Duke of Windsor.
He's played it terribly cleverly. He's made it clear that there is an open invitation to them. So that leaves it to them whether to petulantly refuse and look very, very petty, or to come and to acknowledge that family feeling comes first. And that would be a first step and an important step to a reconciliation. Because there's going to have to...
Listen, we're running out of time. We've already gone over. I really appreciate these. It's so good to hear from you. Lady Victoria Hervey, thank you.
Good to see you.
Royal Butler Grant Harold, thank you so much. Former Labour MP Stephen Pound and also Royal commentator Michael Cole. Right, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we'll continue with our Great British debate this hour. I'm asking, should we splash out on a coronation during a cost of living crisis? You will hear the thoughts of my panel, author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Then at 5, it's this week's Outside. The General Secretary of the Workers for England Union, Stephen Morris, will be live in the studio to answer all your questions about employment, from unfair dismissal to bullying in the workplace. Now, the union has helped loads of celebrities, including artists like Matt Hoy. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you very much. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. A male suspect is on the run in California after a shooting in which at least 10 people have been killed. Emergency services have been responding to an incident in Monterey Park near Los Angeles, where thousands of people had been gathering for a Lunar New Year festival. Another 10 people were taken to local hospitals to be treated for injuries. At least one is in a critical condition. It's the 5th mass shooting in the US this month. Labour has called for a parliamentary inquiry into allegations the chairman of the BBC helped Boris Johnson arrange an £800,000 loan. The former Prime Minister later recommended Richard Sharp for the role at the broadcaster. Mr Sharp insists there was no conflict of interest, while a spokesperson for the former Prime Minister has dismissed the report as rubbish. Meanwhile, a cabinet minister has told GB News Nadeem Zahawi has the Prime Minister's support following allegations about his tax affairs. The Conservative Party chairman's admitted he reached a settlement with HMRC, believed to be almost £5 million, following an error over a multi-million-pound shareholding in the polling company YouGov. Labour has called his position untenable, but Foreign Secretary James Cleverly says he believes Mr Zahawi has paid his taxes.
I don't know any more details than what he has already put in the public domain. I don't think it would be right or proper for me to speculate or guess about any further details about his tax affairs. But he has been a successful entrepreneur, building a company which has paid tax, employing people who have paid taxes, and he has himself paid tax, a considerable amount, because he's been successful.
TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. If you've just joined us, welcome. Where have you been? You know, why don't you download the GB News app, though, because it's a very good app and you can check out all the different programmes on the channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, we return to our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should we splash out on a coronation during a cost of living crisis? Now, it has been announced that King Charles's coronation will be a 3-day event filled with pomp, pageantry and even a crowning ceremony for Camilla, the Queen Consort. Now, the plans dispel the speculation that the King's coronation would be a no-frills event, lacking the grandeur of Queen Elizabeth's coronation in 1953. However, given that the UK is still in the midst of a cost of living crisis, the decision to spend taxpayers' money on the King's coronation will undoubtedly cause controversy in some quarters. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we splash out on a coronation during a cost of living crisis? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by author and broadcaster Christian Hamilton, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Right, Danny, I'm going to come to you first. What do you think? Coronation, it's like the United Colours of Benetton. They've got like everything going on there.
Haven't they just?
Yeah.
Very diverse and inclusive and progressive. And I think one of the panellists may have said this, but that's the way that the world is going. And so if they want to be accepted, then they need to follow that, whether they like it or not. I think it's begrudging, but they've got to do it. I would like to see
King... What do you say you think that's...
I think probably begrudgingly.
Do you think?
I think so, yeah.
Sorry, what? Who's begrudging?
Why would they be begrudging?
Well, it's just an opinion. Begrudgingly, I think the monarchy now realise that in order to be accepted for the next generation of citizens growing up, then they need to be, if you like, for want of a better word, a bit woke. Begrudgingly. No, that's just an opinion. I don't have any inside info at the...
You're the one who's begrudgingly accepting that.
No, I think the palace begrudgingly...
The palace, OK.
I've gone woke. That's just an opinion of mine. I can't back it up. I don't have an insider.
But they're part of the Commonwealth. Look, but they're heads of the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth is a diverse...
Yeah, but they it's very diverse. Refugees and things, though.
Yeah, but the Commonwealth...
It's got nothing to do with the Commonwealth.
No, that's true, but the Commonwealth doesn't make it...
Has it?
But
I'd like to see King Charles put his hand in his own pocket. Sorry to be controversial.
He is, though. He's given the wind farm, hasn't he? The proceeds for that wind farm.
Yeah, but I'd like to see him put his hand deeper into his regal pocket. I really would. He's got loads of dough.
So you think he should pay for...
And I'm a royalist. I queued for 9 hours to see the dead Queen.
You think he should pay Freesat?
Yeah.
Unlike Holly and Phil.
I reckon, unlike Holly and Phil, I reckon...
They've been forgotten, that's been forgotten. I'll just remind
he should write a cheque and post it on Twitter saying, here's 10 mil from myself.
You know what? I think the question should actually be, should the King pay for his own coronation? What do you think?
I think the coronation is going to be an incredibly important event. It is our link. It is living history. I mean, the first... It goes back to William the Conqueror was the first king to be crowned in Westminster Abbey on Christmas Day in 1066. Now, we do not want to break that amazing historical link. It links the whole country with the great tradition. I mean, we're the only country in the world that has this incredible, long-lived monarchy, and the tourists will absolutely adore it. The monarchy brings in so much money. And it's a very... I mean, I may well disagree with some of the details when we know what they are, but we don't really know what they are now. But no, I don't, and I certainly don't think you should pay for it, for heaven's sake.
You don't?
No, it's not his fault. He's king.
But
We will get
anyway.
more back. We will get more back in terms of the spin-off.
But we will still get the spin-off if he pays for it. The spin-off's not going to
I don't see why he
change.
should pay for it. I don't see why he should. He's the king of all of us, and whether people approve of the monarchy, etc., he is the king of everybody, and I think that is something that the taxpayer should pay for. And, you know, the Queen's coronation...
Maybe he should throw 10 mil at it, then.
The Queen's coronation...
He's
I
got
know
it.
there's a terrible cost of living crisis, and I don't underestimate that for 1 second, and the impact it's having on millions of people. The Queen's coronation was just after the war, when we had the most appalling... I mean, imagine the situation then, and still it was thought right that the country would love and cherish this amazing...
Let me ask you a question.
And we'll do the same.
Let me ask you a question.
It's going to be a tremendous success.
Let me ask you a question. For my next landmark birthday, if I invite you, am I going to ask you to bring your own pudding and bottles of wine? Of course not.
Probably.
I will fund it.
You might do, because you might have eaten it all.
I
before
will,
she gets there.
I will pay for it.
Your birthday is a choice. He has no choice. He is our king, and he's got to be crowned. The only two kings who've never been crowned were what were they? They were Edward the...
There's a lack of pudding, all right. Nana's right. I'd have eaten the pudding.
It's true, you'd have to pay for your own pudding.
The analogy's there.
No, but he's got to be crowned. The only two kings who've never been crowned were Edward VIII, I think it was it Edward the Fourth, Prince in the Tower, who was not crowned. Otherwise, every single monarch has been crowned. He is our monarch, he is our king, and he deserves a rip-roaringly splendid coronation.
His bloated bank account
I've
is
got
because
the
of us,
bunching out
because of
already.
you, me, Nana, all the fabulous GB News taxpayers. His bloated bank account is because of us. He should plough it back in to say, listen, I'm with you. I'm with the kids on the street.
Well, it's an interesting choice of words, Danny. But all I can say...
Bloated.
I disagree.
She's looking at my tummy.
I disagree. I will be happy to pay my whatever it is. It'll be a very, very small amount per head of the population.
Well, to be
Minuscule.
fair, whatever he puts in his pocket has come from our pockets anyway.
Exactly.
His money is our money anyway, so it doesn't really make any difference. But with that in mind, should he be spending so much money on it with the fact that we're...
Is there a figure? Is there an actual figure?
No, but it's going to be a lot because they're going lavish. It's not going to be cheap, is it?
It's going to cheer the country up. There'll be street parties, there'll be this, there'll be that.
No one's
there'll be
disputing that. It's about who pays for it.
Yeah, but I think the country should pay for it.
You think the country should pay
for it?
I do.
We're paying for it, even if it comes out of his pocket, because we put the money in there in the first place.
But that means it doesn't come from the
Even
Treasury.
though the face, it's got his face on it in the end, it will have his face on, won't it?
We all need to pay
And
our
what
taxes.
about-
Are you listening, Mr. Zahawi?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's
and then the
interesting.
coronation will be a splash in the ocean.
That's right. That's a very good point.
And very quickly then, in terms of Harry and Meghan, because you know, do you think that they should...
Choked on my tea. No, I do not. I'm not even going to wait for you to ask me. I do not. I know that the king wants to forgive them. Of course he does. He's his son. But I think it would be so disruptive for them to be there. They probably will be invited.
He doesn't want to forgive them. Harry has said, Christine, there needs to be accountability and contrition from the palace for all of his statements.
No, I'm not saying
it's the other way round.
Harry doesn't want but I'm sure the king would like, in an ideal world, to be able to forgive his son. I should guess he's a long way from that now.
Yes.
But I just think if they come to the coronation, it's not their day, it's his day.
But it's his
and
son.
They have, exactly, but look how his son is treated.
We think it's his son.
We know it's his son, come on.
I know.
honestly
He's the
think
spit of Prince Philip as well.
And he's the spit of people in the Spencer.
No,
I mean, I really think it's time that was...
Tired old
I was going to say
joke.
put to bed, but that's
A
not
bit like
true.
myself, a tired old joke.
But no, I don't think they should be invited. Well, maybe invite them, but they shouldn't. They certainly
Danny,
shouldn't. Can you imagine that woman? That woman.
Do I think they should be invited?
Well, they're invited. Do you think they should come?
No. No.
OK, that's good.
If they've got any shred of decency left, they will not come.
Well, you know they haven't, so he wrote that book, for God's sake. Right, this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices, their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. Should we head over to... Oh, I haven't been to Grimsby for a while. Should we go to Grimsby? Let's have a chat to regular Alan McNeely. Good to talk to Alan. Alan, nice to see you on Sunday. Right, what do you think, then? I mean, is it right that you're spending so much money, because it will be a lot, it's going to be lavish, on the coronation?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. There's no point in having it unless it's going to go full throttle, Nana.
But what about the fact that we're in a cost of living crisis? Won't some people be looking at that and thinking, it's all right for you?
Well, the government wastes money hand over fist, Nana, as you know. So I don't think that the cost of the coronation is going to break the Bank of England, because it's already broke.
Well, that's true.
It'll be money well spent, Nana, at the end of the day. I just hope that they have it better organised than the Queen's funeral, where they blocked off all the roads and put up boards so that nobody could see it and all that nonsense. That was a real shambles. But yeah, I think it should go full tilt.
Should Harry and Meghan come to it, do you think?
Well, the King's pretty canny. He's given them an open invitation. He's already said they're welcome to come. I believe that the birthday of Harry's son is on the 6th of May. Well,
he's probably organised it that way.
A good get-out clause, hasn't he, for not coming? He's given them a good excuse not to come so that they can save a bit of face. I would fear that if they came, that people will jeer and boo them. Certainly, if I was going down to the coronation and I saw Harry and Meghan, I would take a bag of tomatoes with me, Nana. Because I think the two of them are an absolute disgrace.
You wouldn't do that. Of course you wouldn't, Alan. He's not recommending anyone does that at all. Alan McNeely, thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you. That is Alan McNeely. He's our great British voice. He's there in Grimsby. Right, well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, it is World View. The host of the Politics People's podcast. Paul Duddridge will be live from LA this hour. And then at 10, at least 10 people have died in a mass shooting in Los Angeles, California, doing a Chinese New Year celebration. And then at 5, the General Secretary of the Workers of England Union, Stephen Morris, will be in the studio to answer all your employment questions, from unfair dismissal to bullying. That's on the way after this.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 9 minutes to 5 o'clock. If you just joined me, welcome on board. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. And it's time now for World View. Now, at least 10 people have died in a mass shooting in Los Angeles, California, during a Chinese New Year's celebration. To just discuss this, we're going live to California now to speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Dudridge. Paul, so what can you tell us about the Chinese New Year shooting?
Yeah, this is the Star Ballroom in Monterey Park. And where I'm located, I often say that I'm in East LA. This is just, really the next neighborhood. So we've had police helicopters circling really up until about 20 minutes ago. So there was a shooting, 10 people confirmed dead, 12 injured, some critically have been taken to local hospitals. The injured number is still not absolutely determined, but 12 so far. The suspect has so far not been captured. There's very scant descriptions. We just know gunman with long weapon. The initial reports that came out at 10 o'clock last night when this event took place, local time, 10 o'clock Pacific, the first reports were of a machine gun, and as opposed to just semi-automatic, but that has now been updated to semi-automatic. Still, I don't know where that evidence is coming from or whether that's been confirmed. But overnight, the description of the weapon has actually changed. There's a report of another incident at a nearby ballroom called the Lai Ballroom. This area of Los Angeles, East LA. Monterey Park is a 65% Asian community. So Chinese New Year celebrations in Monterey Park often it's a 2-day, 3-day event, and they often bring a couple of 100,000 people to the area, to the locale. So this is a very densely packed celebration last night. So, and apparently the shooting that took place was entirely just random, but it's concerning that the gunman has so far not been apprehended, and no real descriptions.
Wow, very worrying. Well, obviously, hopefully you can keep us updated on that. Now, what's the latest with Joe Biden and these documents in his garage?
Well, they keep finding more. They've just found another 6. There's a lot of... We broke this last week, okay? I'm going to take full credit for this, because we were saying that basically all the criticism and all the pressure on this story is actually coming from within the Democrat Party. If you think that Joe Biden's had 2 years of a completely clear run, the laptop, the dealing with the Ukraine money, the Chinese, etc. All the kind of scandals that could have broken were all suppressed by the media. This story is being fed by the Democrats, not by the Republicans. The whole thing just stinks to high heaven. But we've now found the third tranche of documents that weren't declared from Biden's time as vice president. And so he didn't have authority to clear documents, to clear classified documents. And obviously, we've made the comparison between the FBI raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago, where the former president, current in my opinion, but the former president had actually taken documents and cleared them. He had the authority to do so. Biden didn't. For the very first time, the media and the establishment, for want of a better word, are actually pressuring Joe Biden. This is an attempt to replace him as candidate before the next election. Wow. So yes, we found more documents, and the pressure is building on him from inside.
Thank you very much, Paul. That's Paul Dudridge from the Politics People podcast. Thank you very much. Right, let's move over to Russia now. And joining me in the studio to talk about Russia's political commentator and Russia expert, Danny Armstrong. And Danny, we know that Boris has currently gone to Kyiv, hasn't he? So what's he doing there?
Yeah, well, Boris Johnson's currently in Kiev. It's a surprise visit, or surprise if you weren't paying attention to the chronology of what's been happening over the past few days. And on Thursday, he was he addressed leaders in Davos, cheerleading for funding for Ukraine. Of course, he said that we need to double down on funding Ukraine. On Saturday, of course, the big expose about his funding and this £800,000 loan that was sorted out by BBC Chief. And now on Sunday, just a few hours after that breaking, he's in Kiev. He's meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky. It's a fantastic PR opportunity for him to take some of the heat off his back that's been building for the last few days. And of course, Zelensky, we know he likes his powerful political pals, his famous friends. So yeah, it's a great kind of PR opportunity for both of them, and it's great for Boris to remind people that he was the sitting Prime Minister when they had that reaction to Ukraine, the funding, the military assistance. Of course, the UK has been one of the biggest military
supporters.
Supporters of Ukraine, and it's basically that's.
What about earlier this week when Zelensky sort of seemed to allude towards the fact that Putin is dead? Didn't he say something about that? And everyone was like, really? I mean, what was that about?
Yeah, I mean, again, we can see that Volodymyr Zelensky, he unquestionably likes to do these addresses. This was to the WEF, the World Economic Forum. He's done a similar address to the Golden Globes, the Grammys. Again, these powerful friends that he's got, these famous friends. He said that he doesn't think that Vladimir Putin, the Vladimir Putin that we see on TV screens, is actually the Russian president. He says it could be CGI. It could be the Green Room. I mean, he'll know a little bit about that.
Well, to be honest, you know, they're very good at that, aren't they? In Russia?
Yeah,
they're
also very good at it in Ukraine. I mean, Zelensky has showed himself to be a master of the Green Room. What I would say about Boris Johnson, just going back to him, is how it's been received, or how it will be received in Russia. When he went the last time, Sergei Narishkin, which is Russia's top spy, said that some of the negotiations that were reached in Istanbul between Russia and Ukraine quickly became, well, Ukraine quickly reneged on some of the promises they made in those negotiations after Boris Johnson went to see Volodymyr Zelensky.
So they don't like it when Boris goes there at all, then, do they?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, the way it's being received in Russia is the fact that they will think that one of the biggest cheerleaders for funding for Ukraine has kind of twisted Volodymyr Zelensky's arm, and now he doesn't want to sit down at negotiations because cash is coming in from the West. And it also justifies, we'll get it in, it also justifies the Russian pretext for the war that Russia is fighting Western-backed and a NATO-backed Ukraine.
Well, they shouldn't have started the war. I mean, what did they expect? They started the war. But can I just say, so what's going on now, though? Because there's just been a warning, there's a big update for a warning from Vladimir Putin that he's saying that he will have to use nuclear weapons. I mean, what's that about?
Well, I think at the moment there's been, of course, in winter, as was expected, as I've said to you, Nana, on this show quite a few times, that there would be a lull in action on the battlefield. As I've always said, the threat of nuclear war is much more beneficial to all sides involved, and certainly to Vladimir Putin, than actually using nuclear weapons. So I can't see that being on the table, actually using those nuclear weapons.
But that's that was the latest thing, a real update that came today.
It is always the threat of nuclear war that's much more beneficial to Russia than actually using nuclear warheads. We're actually looking forward now to, well, not looking forward, it's a terrible choice of words, but in terms of the war, we're looking towards a spring offensive when Russia regroups and is ready to launch an offensive on the battlefield.
And very, very quickly, you've got about 30 seconds with regard to these tanks. Germany are blocking us, people from sending the tanks.
Well, it goes against Germany's foreign policy to provide lethal aid. This is what they didn't provide when the war broke out, and this is what they were criticised for, these Leopard tanks. There was a summit in Ramstein that was supposed to bring about a decision to send these tanks. They didn't reach one. So Germany is being crucified a little bit for this decision and a lack of inaction, as it has been since the war began. But it does go against German foreign policy, of course, given World War II and given their history, that they can't send lethal aid to fund the war. So they're in a catch-22 situation, really.
Really? All right, Danny Armstrong, thank you very much. He's a political commentator. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. More to come in the next hour. Good afternoon, it's 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. Now, coming up, I'll be speaking to the General Secretary of the Workers of England Union, who'll be here to talk about all things employment. Then stay tuned for the Great British Debate this hour. I'll be asking, does Labour have a woman problem? But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. It's 5 o'clock. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. Investigations are continuing in California after at least 10 people were killed in a shooting at a Lunar New Year festival. Thousands of people had gathered at the Monterey Park near Los Angeles when a gunman opened fire. Another 10 people were taken to hospital, with at least one in a critical condition. The LA County Sheriff says a male suspect fled the scene and remains at large.
Very preliminary description has been described as a male Asian. We're interviewing victims and witnesses. We've gotten different descriptions of one suspect. So when I say it's preliminary, please again be patient with us. We are here to tell you that we are utilizing every resource to apprehend this suspect in what we believe to be one of the county's most heinous cases.
Labour's calling for an urgent investigation into claims the chairman of the BBC, Richard Sharp, helped Boris Johnson arrange a loan weeks before the then Prime Minister recommended Sharp for the job. The Sunday Times claims Mr Sharp helped Boris Johnson secure a guarantor for a loan of up to £800,000 when he was in financial difficulty in late 2020. Sharp was announced as the government's choice for the BBC position in January 2021. Both men say there was no conflict of interest. Labour and the SNP have called for an independent inquiry. Meanwhile, a cabinet minister has told GB News Nadeem Zahawi has the Prime Minister's support following allegations about his tax affairs. The Conservative Party chairman's admitted he reached a settlement with HMRC, believed to be almost £5 million, following an error over a multi-million-pound shareholding in the polling company YouGov. Labour has called his position untenable, but Foreign Secretary James Cleverly says he believes Mr Zahawi has paid his taxes.
I don't know any more details than what he has already put in the public domain. I don't think it would be right or proper for me to speculate or guess about any further details about his tax affairs. But he has been a successful entrepreneur, building a company which has paid tax, employing people who have paid taxes, and he has himself paid tax, a considerable amount, because he's been successful.
The government says energy firms should stop forcing lower-income households to switch to prepayment meters. The Business Secretary, Grant Shapps, has threatened to name and shame energy suppliers who aren't doing enough to help vulnerable people pay their bills. The energy companies have also been asked by Mr Shapps to reveal the number of warrant applications they've made to enter the properties. European countries are putting renewed pressure on Germany to authorise the supply of its tanks to Ukraine. Several countries want to send their German-made Leopard tanks, but they need Germany to give it a green light. Latvia, Estonia and Lithuania say Germany, as a leading European power, has a special responsibility in restoring peace on the continent. Berlin insists it's not blocking deliveries and has yet to make a decision about supplying its tanks to the war-torn country. At least 300 migrants have arrived in the UK on 8 small boats overnight, making it the busiest day of Channel crossings so far this year. GB News understands a few other boats have also set off this morning but haven't yet made it to the UK. The boats were monitored by French naval vessels, which can only intervene if the migrants get into difficulties. Today's arrivals bring the total number of those crossing the Channel this year to 450. And Buckingham Palace has revealed the Queen Consort will be crowned alongside the King in a break with tradition at the coronation in May. The service will be conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury at Westminster Abbey, followed by a large-scale ceremonial procession. A concert will also take place at Windsor Castle featuring global music icons. It dispels any speculation King Charles has been planning a low-key coronation. Thousands of events are expected to take place all over the UK, with a bank holiday declared for Monday the 8th. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now it's back to Nana.
Good afternoon. It is fast approaching 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Now, still to come, each Sunday at 5, I'm joined by a celebrity, a former MP, or someone who's had an extremely interesting career to take a look at life after the job. We talk highs, lows and lessons learned and what comes next on the outside. And today, I'm joined by the General Secretary of the Workers of England Union, Stephen Morris. Now, he'll be touching upon some of the mass strikes, information on that. And all of those, obviously, this country is literally stuck in strikes. And he'll be answering your employment-related questions. So have you ever been bullied in the workplace or neglected by your bosses but not know how to deal with it? Or have you just been dismissed unfairly? Stephen will be here in just a moment, so stay tuned. And then for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, does Labour have a woman problem? The Labour MP, Rosie Duffield, has claimed her own party has a serious woman problem. Now, this comes as Conservative MP Miriam Cates was subject to heckling and abuse from mostly male MPs on the Labour side of the House after a speech about the Scottish Gender Reform Bill. So do you think Labour has a woman problem? Remember Keir Starmer as well? Does a woman have a penis? They couldn't answer that straight. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet me at GBNews. And now it is time for this week's Outside. Now, job stability, workers' conditions and wages and workers' rights have come to the forefront over the last few months due to the mass strikes that have gripped this country. Stephen Morris is the General Secretary of the Workers of England Union, and their goal is to protect workers' rights and ensure job stability. All is to do with unfairness, and they promote unity and winning in the workplace. Now, Stephen's union has also worked with celebrity reggae artist Matt Hoy over his employment issues. Job security and job satisfaction have become a big worry for many workers across this country, and things have changed, especially after the pandemic. So should the majority of the nation's workforce be part of a union? What are the benefits? Well, I'm pleased to say, joining me to talk about this is the General Secretary of the Workers of England Union, Stephen Morris. Stephen, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really good to talk to you. Now, first of all, I want to ask you about these mass strikes. Everyone is going on strike. I mean, why do you think that we've been gripped by this? I know people are saying it's because of inflation, but some of those workers, for example, some of the ASLEF workers, they're paid quite well anyway. So what do you think?
To me, it's really a political issue at the minute. That's what's ground to it. The main unions that are going on strike are obviously the ones who support the Labour Party. And so they can see that the Conservatives Party are really on the knees. They're unlikely to win the next election, and they're really trying to push the Labour agenda across it. And like you say, some of them are on really good money, and they're not looking, because they're unions that are specific to them industries, they're not looking at the country as a whole, like we would as a general union. We have to look at, if you suddenly give all the public sector all these massive pay rises, what's that going to do to the cost of living? That's going to increase it for the private sector people who have to pay the taxes, pay the bills, put extra strain on them businesses, and possible redundancies and other issues that develop. So they're not looking at the entire bigger picture. They're looking at a political agenda with Labour.
Well, I mean, I know that is one of the things that one of the secretaries at the PCS union, was it Mark Sawatska? He's the one that said actually they want to bring down the government with the strikes. Yeah. Those were his words. It was in a paper, and he said that, and he was quite comfortable with saying it. So, you know, what you're saying in big terms in some of those unions, especially for the civil service union, does seem to be true.
It is. One of the things when you looked at the initial strikes, it was the train drivers. People looked at how much money they were on and thought, hang on, we were nowhere near that. That's good money. Yes, there's a cost of living. So with any household, it's not just how much you earn, it's how much you're spending. But then they tended to move it into areas that they thought people would have sympathy with them. So they then moved it to the NHS, and they've moved it to education. They're looking at the teachers. So they've moved it into areas where they think they can get more sympathy. But again, it's still to try and bring down the government earlier than they want to.
Do you think that the pandemic has got something to answer for with this? Because a lot of people, you know, they got used to staying at home and, you know, being paid pretty well for doing not much, furlough. People got this sort of complacency about them.
The cost of living to us is a cost of lockdown. That's what it is. You had the internal workings of the country locked up. Businesses weren't making money. People were being paid to stay at home. And so Yes, so the public sector workers were working, and some would say
some
that
were being furloughed.
Some were being furloughed, and we were being paid for it. And some would
Yeah.
say, well, actually, they're only paying to do the job that they're paid to do, you know. But the cost of lockdown issues have affected everybody, and our businesses are struggling. You know, you've seen the high streets now are really struggling. They're going to. A lot of places are starting to look at whether they can continue working or not. So we've got to look at the bigger picture, and even if they give the public sector all this pay rise, and depending on who you speak to, it can vary between 500 and 700 million per 1%. That's going to increase the cost of living because somebody's got to pay for it.
Well, that's the thing. And actually, so what does really will get me really annoyed is the fact that, especially the train drivers, they were paid furlough because obviously there weren't really any trains running. So they were paid furlough for not doing anything.
Yep.
And now saying, oh, it's not fair. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. Some of us had to work, in particular the nurses, who I believe should be paid more. I do think they should be paid more.
Yeah.
But I think that they have to be realistic with it.
Well, there's bigger conditions with the nurses. One of the things that we noticed with these strikes is we didn't really see a work to rule. We didn't see the banning of overtimes or stopping of overtimes. We just seemed to go straight to strike action, which is usually the last resort. So nobody's been mentioned about the overtime bans. So it seems as have people been happy to earn the overtime money in preparation for when they don't get paid on the strikes. These are other arguments that we need to look at, but there is serious staffing issues within the public sector, especially with nurses. There's issues to do with beds. But also, we've got to look at where some issues are at the moment with the beds in the NHS. 40,000 care home workers got dismissed because they didn't want to take part in the clinical trials. So where were the unions on that?
When you say clinical trials, you're talking about COVID?
I'm talking about COVID, yeah, which was on clinical trial. That was the yellow card reporting's phrase. But the issue is there, these care homes now haven't got the facilities to take people from the hospitals. That's causing a bed block. And then the ambulance services are saying, well, we have an issue because we can't empty the ambulances. It all stems to the actions of the government during the lockdown and how they behaved. But the strikes, really, they just seem to have gone straight for strike action, not gone through the normal negotiation procedures. And for us, when you look at the nurses, the people got to remember that under the Agenda for Change contract, if the nurses get the pay, everybody gets the pay.
Well, that's the thing, and that will.
And some people don't know about that. They just think, oh, it's just nurses. It's not.
No,
Everybody on the Agenda for Change contract will get the pay rise, and that increases it massively.
And that's difficult for the taxpayer because obviously it's public sector workers. That puts a lot of them in a higher tax bracket, which means that sometimes you get more money, but you get paid more, but you take home more.
Yep.
You end up in a higher tax bracket. It is a bit of a catch, and I think a lot of people need to look at that.
It's a vicious circle. You know, increase public spending. You've got to pay for it somehow. You're going to pay for it in cuts, or you're going to pay for it in tax increases. That's the only way. So it's up to the people to decide, and the proper question put to them.
Yeah.
Do you think the nurses should have a 19% pay rise? Do you think so? If you agree with that, okay, are you happy to pay this extra amount of tax, or do you want the services cut?
Yeah. And people will probably pay more tax, right?
Yeah. Well, they won't want to. In a cost of living crisis, they'll say, I can't pay any more tax. You know.
So talk to me about you then. You set up this Workers of England union. Why did you set it up? When did you do it?
We started to form in 2009, 2010. One of the things was we were concerned that the trade unions had become too politicised. They weren't properly representing the members. So what we do, we don't affiliate, if I can say it, to any political party. And we don't use workplace reps, and that's quite important because this comes to another one on costs, because we keep our costs really low, and that's one of the issues. The other trade unions have to report under, the public sector services have to report under facility time. The trade unions that the NHS normally deals with cost them just short of £29 million in facility time in 2020, 2021. That's money that the unions are getting subscriptions for, but then pay the Labour Party donations, but don't reimburse the NHS.
Right, I see.
And you've got the same in education and you've got the same in civil service. Now, to me, if these trade unions believed in that the NHS should be properly funded and they wanted to support it, they should say, right, OK, our reps have cost the NHS this amount of money, just short of £29 million, we'll give that money back.
Well, they're not going to do that.
They're not going to do that.
Of course they're not going to do that.
Because they have offices all over the country that they have to pay these bills for. And we don't. We have one office. We've always been internet-based. Our reps are based all over the country, but they operate from home.
And so what's different to yours? So anyone can join this sort of union and...
Anyone can join because we're a general union.
Okay.
But we also don't put across a political view. So, as an example, if you came to us and said, what's the union's view on this? We say we don't have one. We just say to you, what's your issue? You tell us what your issue is and then we represent you.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And I know there's different sort of cases these days because before we didn't have the internet. But what if, because I often wonder myself, what if somebody said something ages ago? Because I know quite a few people who've gone for jobs, they said something ages ago, somebody's found it on Twitter and brought it back. Where can you have somebody that represents you doing this? If you go for a job and you get fired because of something that you said ages ago.
You've got rights. There's various rights and various legislations that already protect you on the internet. The only thing we tell people to do is really don't put anything on there about who you work for.
Yeah.
That's the only one. If you don't put who you work for, then a lot of the legislations will protect you. European regulations on free speech, current regulations we've got here on free speech do protect.
So in your bit where you've got, GBNews or whatever, where you say who you work for, don't put that there.
Yeah, don't put who you work for, because then it could be seen that the argument an employer would use is that you may be bringing the company into disrepute. And in employment law, one thing that people need to be concerned about or clear about, it's different to criminal law. In criminal, they have to have absolute proof that you've done this. Or in employment law, they only need reasonable belief.
Interesting.
It's a very grey area. So if an employer says, I reasonably believe you brought the company into disrepute, that's it.
Yeah.
They don't have to have absolute proof. So if you're putting something on social media, we just say to people, don't put your company on there.
And finally, why should people join unions? Because a lot of people look at that and say, well, because I think a lot of people are pressurised to go on strike when everyone goes on strike. Why should people actually join unions? Do you think everyone should join a union?
I think everybody should be a member of a union.
Yeah.
But you need a union that properly represents the members' interests and not the union's interests. To us, it's the individual that's the matter. So you've got to bear in mind that over the decades, trade unions have really got proper workers' rights. A lot of the rights we have now, we may say we don't have a lot of rights, but we do have a lot more health and safety regulations and so on. And these have been brought in through trade unions working a lot. But as we saw in the late 70s and as we see now, a lot of trade unions seem to have lost their way in what their role actually is. Their role is to represent the member and get the best conditions.
Not to bring the government down.
Not to bring a government down.
Which is what these lot seem to be doing.
Yeah.
So everyone should join a union. Listen, Stephen, it's really good to talk to you. We're running out of time, but
Thank you.
Thank you. Very informative, really. That's Stephen Morris. He's the General Secretary of the Workers of England Union. Well, coming up, it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, does Labour have a woman problem? Labour MP Rosie Duffield has said that her party has serious women problems. Now, this has come as Conservative MP Miriam Cates faced heckling and abuse from mostly male MPs on the Labour side of the House after a speech about Scottish gender reform. So does the party have a Labour problem? That's coming up after the weather.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Today and over the next few days, the UK is a bit of a battleground between cold and milder air. High pressure over Scandinavia, but stretching its way down into southeastern areas of England is holding the cold air intact here. The frontal systems, though, that are trying to push their way into the north and west are also dredging up some milder air. Milder air at this time of the year, though, is accompanied by a fair amount of cloud, and we will see some patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle continuing across southwest Scotland and other Irish Sea coastal areas overnight. Where we hold on to the clearer skies, further to the south and east, temperatures will be dropping off quite rapidly down to -5, -4 Celsius in some towns and cities. This will be accompanied by freezing fog developing overnight. Could be quite dense in places, so do just take care where you are heading out first thing on Monday morning. Likely to linger through the morning across the likes of Cambridgeshire, but eventually clearing away to allow some brighter spells. Cloud pushing its way into Kent and areas of East Anglia. Meanwhile, the cloud over northern and western areas is going to remain fairly persistent, and it could be another largely grey day with further outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Going to stay mild in the north and west, though, highs of 9, 10 degrees Celsius here, but only around 3 degrees further to the south and east. Into Monday evening, it's a relatively similar picture, but because we've now got the cloud filtering its way into the far southeast, the frost will just hold off a bit more here, and it'll be that central slice of England where temperatures will readily drop off once again. As we move into the rest of the week, that cloud in the north and west is slowly going to push its way southwards with this frontal system. So we will eventually see some cloudier and also milder conditions across southern areas of England as we move towards the middle of the week. Behind that cold front, though, we will see an ingress of some slightly colder air, so temperatures will fall off a bit for the likes of Edinburgh and Belfast, but not too cold, more around average for the time of year by the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday. See you later.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, coming up to 24 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you've just joined me, welcome. You've missed most of the show. No, you haven't. It's all right. We've got about 35 minutes or so left. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. Now, it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, does Labour have a woman problem? Now, the Labour MP for Canterbury, Rosie Duffield, said that her own party has got a serious woman problem and even equated the current Labour Party to her abusive relationship. Her comments come after she and several other female MPs, including the Conservative MP Miriam Cates, were subjected to heckling and abuse from mostly male MPs on the Labour side of the House after they highlighted what they see as the need to protect vulnerable women in single-sex spaces and had criticised Scotland's gender reform bill. Now, the abuse culminated in Labour MP Lloyd Russell Moyle calling Miriam Cates a bigot and moving to the Tory side of the House to intimidate her. And Duffield's comments threatened to make life difficult for Starmer, who's been criticised in the past for his inability to define what a woman is. He doesn't even think it's right to say that only women have a cervix.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said.
So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, does Labour have a woman problem? I'm joined now by former Labour MP and Minister for Europe, Dennis McShane. Dennis, Keir Starmer hopes to be our next Prime Minister to show. But how damning is it that right now there seems to be some heckling there, being downright disrespectful to the women in the chamber? I mean, what is that about?
Very, very bad behaviour, in my view. I mean, I was shocked. I campaigned for Rosie Duffield in 2017, and then in 2019 she got rid of a misogynist and, at this time, quite homophobic Tory MP. I think Keir Starmer is getting into the difficulty of personal politics here. As somebody says, you know, only women have a penis, that
Well,
kind
what
of
other
thing.
politics is there? I mean, look, seriously, that's what people care about.
Well, it is, but the question isn't put to sort of Rishi Sunak and others. It's just aimed
Well,
at
Rishi
Labour.
Sunak answered it straight away and said, no, a woman doesn't have a penis.
I think the difficulty also is, I mean, it's a real problem, because there's so many women who fought in the 70s, 80s against misogyny, for gay rights. Julie Bindel, Joan Smith, I can list so many names, and Rosie Duffield also as well. They're now being told that they can't say that it's absolutely central as the trans issue becomes sensitive, that women's rights are equally respected. On the other side, you've got people like Nicola Sturgeon, who's trying to stir it all up in the name of Scottish nationalism. Yeah. That's also wrong. So I think there's a real problem there for all parties, and I hope Labour, you know, just is a bit more sensitive on this.
Well, do you think that that could be their undoing, though? Because there's a lot of women like me who are looking, going, oh, well, you know, because I'm not seeing much happen with the Conservative Party. I don't know who I would vote for. None of them are looking pretty good to me at all. I'm not interested in a party that seems to have all this awfulness going on. The Deems are Harwy with this, his tax affairs and the non-dom status and not wearing a seatbelt and all that. And then on the other side, you've got a party who are unable to define what a woman is, or even to say if a woman has a penis, and backing Nicola Sturgeon's gender reform bill in the Scottish House. I mean, you know.
Well, even in Scotland, there's now a majority against that, and Labour MPs, Scottish Labour MPs, some, not all, did speak out critically on it. I just think that it was like Keir Starmer the other day was asked, as an Arsenal fan, who would you rather go and watch Arsenal play with? I mean,
sat on the fence.
No. Jeremy Corbyn or Piers Morgan, and without hesitation, he said Piers Morgan. And
Exactly.
I think
he
the
can
country.
questions.
Well, he can. I think asking any political party leaders to simply yes/no questions doesn't work that well.
Well, it should work well. You know,
it can be, okay, all right.
They should be able to answer questions straight, and that does irritate me. And they think that they're being clever. They think that they're being clever by circumnavigating the answer and coming out and then changing the subject. And it's like, you still haven't answered the question. And you know, the British people are very intelligent people. We're not stupid, and we get so bored of this nonsense, especially not even being able to answer whether a woman has a penis. How does he expect women to vote for him?
Well, I think other people...
Well, he did later on. He answered it later on.
Yes, I mean, other people...
But it took him a few months.
A few months to
when he realised his mistake and he was losing 50%.
He was. I don't actually think the number of number of women affected by the Scottish legislation, I read one analysis, is in the low hundreds.
Young people. It's rubbish. It's all women, because the legislation will affect all women. Well, listen, I'm also joined by political commentator Anna McGovern. Anna, do you feel that that the abuse received by Rosie Duffield and other female MPs will put a lot of women off entering politics, and also a lot voting Labour?
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is such a widespread problem, especially, entering politics as a woman. And I think for many women, I don't think you should feel like you should be intimidated or have to apologise for wanting a woman's only space. Because women, they are at danger, especially if they're sharing a space with someone who isn't biologically a woman. And I think for many young women who are maybe watching, their House of Commons, seeing almost our protected spaces becoming a political debate, I could definitely see some women sort of being reluctant into entering politics because they don't care about the issues that matter to us.
What about Keir Starmer's inability initially to define what a woman is? I mean, that was ridiculous and pathetic, and it's worrying that was, when he was first asked it, that's the way he behaved.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when we went in Reading High Street, me and a friend of mine, we were recording for a YouTube channel, and we spoke to many of the residents around Reading, and we just asked them to define, gender and elaborate on that. And we asked one person that approached us, we just asked him to define what's a transgender woman and what is a woman? Which you think is quite a simple question. But when asked what is a woman, he could not answer the question whatsoever. And he said that a woman is a leader for trans women and to lead the sort of notion forward. And you sort of question, like, why can't anyone answer a very simple question? And why are people too afraid to almost answer these questions, to be honest?
Well, let's bring in Dennis McShane on this one.
I agree. I agree with that.
Yes,
I was very struck the other day. Go to Picture House Cinemas, big chain in London. It's very popular. I like them. And they removed all the men's loos and simply have simple cubicles.
Oh.
Well, that's actually probably a good and respectful thing. It means men now have to wait the same length of time as women have to wait to go. And normally we used to just go into a thing called a urinal, a wall.
Yes, I think you should keep those urinals.
You don't want the details on this. And that safe space issue, Anna's absolutely right. It is causing a great deal of anguish of, don't want to get into a generation game, women right through the Labour Party who want that absolute respect for being a woman. I'm not sure, it's crazy. I never thought I'd sort of finish my political life where leaders of Labour parties or Conservative parties were asked who had a penis and who had a cervix. So maybe that just shows the direction of travel we're going in.
Anna.
I was just going to say, I absolutely agree with what's been said. And I think, especially, it's almost like we're focusing on the wrong issues. And I think it's very telling in schools as well. I think research shows that 80% of secondary school students, they're now identifying as LGBT. And I think this is something that's definitely influencing our schools and becoming a polarized issue. And I think that this is something that's going to continue and become even wider spread as society moves on.
So in short then, do you think, Anna, that Labour have a woman problem, yes or no?
Yes, I absolutely do.
And Dennis McShane, does Labour have a woman problem, yes or no?
Not quite.
Yes or no?
Oh, yes and no.
Yeah, see, that's obviously a Labour Party member sitting.
No. I think there is a problem. I don't know who's advising Sir Keir on this, but he hasn't really, as it's arisen as an issue, got the tone right. But we're stuck now with the cynical nationalist ideology of Nicola Sturgeon, who
we're not
is promoting this. Scotland's stuck with it.
No, they can get rid of her. If the Labour Party sort their act out, you'll be able to get rid of Nicola Sturgeon. Thank you very much to Anna McGovern, political commentator, and also Dennis McShane. Thank you so much, former Labour MP and Minister for Europe. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll continue with our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, does Labour have a woman problem? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton, also broadcaster and columnist Danny Kelly. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. A male suspect is on the run in California following a shooting in which at least 10 people have been killed. Emergency services have been responding to an incident in Monterey Park near Los Angeles, where thousands of people had been gathering for a Lunar New Year festival. Another 10 people were taken to local hospitals to be treated for injuries, and at least one is in a critical condition. It's the 5th mass shooting in the US this month. Labour has called for a parliamentary inquiry into allegations the chairman of the BBC helped Boris Johnson arrange an £800,000 loan. The former Prime Minister later recommended Richard Sharp for the role at the broadcaster. Mr Sharp insists there was no conflict of interest, while a spokesperson for the former Prime Minister has dismissed the report as rubbish. Meanwhile, a cabinet minister has told GB News Nadhim Zahawi has the Prime Minister's support following allegations about his tax affairs. The Conservative Party chairman's admitted he reached a settlement with HMRC, believed to be almost £5 million, following an error over multi-million-pound shareholding in the polling company YouGov. Labour has called his position untenable, but Foreign Secretary James Cleverly says he believes Mr Zahawi has paid his taxes.
I don't know any more details than what he has already put in the public domain. I don't think it would be right or proper for me to speculate or guess about any further details about his tax affairs. But he has been a successful entrepreneur, building a company which has paid tax, employing people who have paid taxes, and he has himself paid tax, a considerable amount, because he's been successful.
At least 380 migrants have arrived in the UK on 10 small boats overnight, making it the busiest day of Channel crossings so far this year. GB News understands a few other boats have also set off this morning but haven't yet made it to the UK. The boats were monitored by French naval vessels, which can only intervene if the migrants get into difficulties. Today's arrivals bring the total number of those crossing the Channel this year to 530. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Good afternoon. It's coming up to 38 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and we're back to my great British debate this hour. I'm asking, does Labour have a woman problem? Labour MP Rosie Duffield has said her own party has got a serious woman problem and equated the current Labour Party to an abusive relationship. Now, her comments come after she and several other female MPs, including Conservative Miriam Cates, were subjected to heckling and abuse from mostly male MPs on the Labour side of the House. That's after they highlighted that they see as the need to protect women in single spaces and have criticised the Scottish Gender Reform Bill. Now, Rosie's comments threaten to make life difficult for Starmer, who's been criticised in the past for his inability to define what a woman is. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, does Labour have a woman problem? Well, let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined now by Christine Hamilton and also Danny Kelly. Let's start with you, Christine. What do you think? Do they have a woman problem?
Well, I mean, don't take it from me. Their own MP, Rosie Duffield, said, she's got a big article somewhere, I read it, I can't remember where it was, the Mail, I think, today, saying, yes, they do have a woman problem. And the MP you just mentioned, Lloyd Russell Moy, I think his name is, the way he marched across the chamber and went and sat down next to Miriam Cates, the Tory MP, and she was sitting facing the normal way, and he just sat there and sort of looked at her and stared at her, intimidated, and described her as a bigot. Well, I mean, that sort of behaviour really should not take place in the House of Commons, and it does that young girl you were talking to. I mean, it does put people off. Women the one reason why I never became an MP was because I never wanted, which is what I did want to do when I first went to work there way back in the early 70s, was because I hate and nobody believed this, but I hate confrontation. And I really didn't like the sort of gladiatorial atmosphere in there. And, of course, then it was much more difficult for women. But that is what put me off doing it. I mean, thank goodness it did, to be honest, but it did. So I think women are going to be put off, and I think it's very telling when however many front bench women you've got, when one of your own who had a spectacular victory defeating Julian Brazier in Canterbury. She's the only Labour MP in the whole of the county. You know, she's fighting a pretty lonely battle down there. And then if she says that Labour is not welcoming to women, then I think you have to sit up and take notice, Mr. Starmer or Sir Starmer.
Sir Keir. That's right. It's the bullying left once again. It's the people who say that they are so liberally minded. And my issue here is that they've tied themselves into knots, complete knots, about the penis and the cervix, man and a woman. And once
so easy to answer, isn't it?
But you see, once you protect, what they're trying to do is protect a minority, a vulnerable minority, i.e. trans. And then before the trans issue, they were protecting a vulnerable minority or equality, which were women's rights. But unfortunately now, the smaller the minority, it's true, the smaller the minority trumps the larger majority.
The smaller the tail wags the dog.
Of course. Now, if we could find someone who was more vulnerable than a trans, then it's true. Then the Labour mob would go after the trans to say, you can't say that about him or her. It's crazy. This is just liberal psychopathy. It's crazy.
Well, it's identity politics, isn't it? I mean, I know everybody's seen the clip a million times, but for Keir Starmer not to be able to say what a woman is, not to be able to say whether a woman has a penis or a cervix, I mean, it's a 5-year-old kid could tell you that.
Well, the thing is, I think what worries me the most is that people are afraid to say this now. They're afraid to be honest about it. So it's like the emperor with no clothes. We have to pretend that, you know, well, OK, this is a woman. Listen, I have every respect for whatever you are. I don't care. Trans woman, woman, whatever. It's irrelevant to me. But don't tell me that you're a woman like me, when you are a man who is a trans woman.
And they're lying as well.
But most trans people don't particularly want to have that argument either, because they accept that they are trans women and I accept I'm a woman. So for the politicians to start to create this non-issue and start to be confused about it when it's quite obvious what the reality is, seems a bit ridiculous.
I object, personally, to being called a cis woman. I'm not a cis woman. I am a woman, for goodness sake. I'm a woman and trans women are trans women. Why should I have to be a subsection of womanhood? Cis woman. I'm not. I'm a woman.
Let me ask two women a question that a bloke can never answer. Would you feel vulnerable in a changing room if, for example, these equality laws in Scotland were to filter down to England? I mean, how realistic or how often would you be trying something on in the changing room or in a woman's toilet, public toilet, and a bloke in a dress comes in?
Well, actually, one time I went into a shop and that did happen, but I was with the person who was the trans woman, and I went with her to the changing room and she tried on some dresses, and I didn't actually have any issue with it whatsoever.
That's because you knew that individual. Yeah. What about if another bloke in a dress came in?
It's not going to happen very often, is it?
But how would you think? Exactly, that's their point,
women,
the frequency of it.
Exactly. Most women
Not that I agree
would, rightly or wrongly, feel rather uncomfortable.
But it's not just... It's not really... I think that's not the problem. Really, the problem is by opening the... I mean, if we look at Nicola Sturgeon's gender reform bill, it's just the fact that it opens things out to absolutely anybody to easily define themselves as a woman without any sort of real medical diagnosis or anything like that. And I think at that point, that's when it's open to abuse. And that's why women are concerned. But that's why we're concerned with a party who is unable to define what a woman is, because it is important that they can and not be afraid to do that, because it means that they won't fight my corner.
And the real women are being marginalised all the time. I mean, to be perfectly honest, on a very trivial note, possibly, I don't really like these multi-sex loos.
I hate them.
I hate them. I mean, you know, we've got them here at GB News, but it's a rented building and nothing can be done about it.
Yes, but you're not going to bump into a stranger at GB News.
No,
toilets.
but I still would much rather, when I go through the door into a loo, to know that it was a ladies' loo and there weren't going to be any men in there. Apart from anything else, they always leave the seat
And
up.
they don't wash their hands. I've seen some do that. I won't say which ones. No, don't. No,
That's disgusting.
It is disgusting. But it's not just that as well. For women, the toilets are a place where we chat.
Exactly.
You know, like, we do our makeup.
you adjust your nippers,
slag off fellas.
Yes, exactly, all of that, and that's sort of taken away when you have to do this sort of unisex thing.
Yeah, I don't
when women,
like it.
It's almost like a communal space that women feel safe in, that they can go and be with other women and sort of close the door on men, and we enjoy that. It's a bit like your man shed. Probably.
Yeah, very narrow toilets. Sometimes I have to reverse him. So
I bet you do. There's no rotating with you.
Stop giving away the secrets of behind the scenes
backside
here.
is reversing.
So do you think that the Labour Party, Danny, have a woman problem?
Yeah, because they can't nail the colours to the mast and say that a bloke's got a penis and a woman's got a cervix. Keir Starmer needs to be brave and just put up with the trans barrage of abuse and just get over with it, and then he will get a lot more support.
Well, to be fair, though, let's be fair to that. It's not necessarily the trans barrage of abuse at all. He's openly giving himself this platform to say, I mean, initially, nobody told him to say that a woman doesn't have a penis. He could have easily said that. Rishi Sunak was able to say that. I don't think the trans people would be that bothered if he said that. No, but so I don't know.
An angry mob, though, on Twitter.
Yeah, but an angry mob, probably not even trans people as a mob. It could be just anyone. You know, you can't say that's... Where does that come from?
It's quite frightening that he hadn't got the cojones to just stand up and say what we all know to be the truth.
He probably won't tell you that he's got testicles.
Well, I very carefully wasn't going to use the word.
Well done, Danny. Right, the show.
I didn't want to get into trouble for using the wrong word.
But Danny decided to. Right, the show is nothing without you and your views.
Danny.
Let's welcome our great British voices, their opportunity to be on the show. Tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. I've got 4 of them today. Let's start with Julie Shaw from Bridlington. Julie, what do you think? Does Labour have a woman problem?
Well, they definitely have. And if he gets in, it's going to take us back. For women's equality, it's going to take us back decades. They've never had a female leader, ever, yet their manifesto proudly declares Labour will put women in the heart of our government. Really? I don't think so, do you? And incidentally, the gender pay gap was at its widest between 1998 and 2010. Who was leading us then? Labour. The same party would have us believe that they put women's interests first. It's just a narcissist. He'll jump on any bandwagon and try to mop up votes from those who he sees as underrepresented. I think one of your panel mentioned this. He'll go for any underrepresented groups because he's a narcissist. He'll do anything
to be fair,
gain likes and attention.
To be fair, Julie, he's not here to defend himself, so we'll sort of let that go.
No, he's not.
If he was, you could put it to him, and he could probably defend himself and deny it. Let's go to Brian Dugan. He's there in Solihull. Brian Dugan.
Hi, Nana. I might have to defend Keir Starmer after Julie's intervention there, but I think it's troubling for Keir Starmer and for the Labour Party that Rosie Duffield has made these comments, and I think that shows that there is an issue within the Labour Party, and they do need to address it. And certainly what Julie says in terms of the gender pay gap, the fact that the Tories have had 2 female leaders, while Labour have yet to have a female leader. But they have had very prominent frontline...
You can count Liz Truss in that.
Nana?
I know it's only 45 days, but it's still 3. There's 3 litres. Right. All right,
that's very true. I had forgotten
you
about
forgot,
it.
I understand.
That's a very good point. But I think you're right. Labour does have a problem, and the fact that someone within the party has made these comments absolutely illuminates that.
Well, OK, let's go to Lee Webb. Lee Webb, he's there in Bedfordshire.
You know, I think Labour do have a problem with this, with defining what a woman is, and it's the same kind of problem that they had with anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, where they kind of denied that there was any anti-Semitism, and it was found that they did have anti-Semitism. I think it's such an easy thing to define what a woman is. Biologically, it's all to do with chromosomes, and of course, whether you've got a penis or not. If you've got a penis, you're a man. If you've got everything else, you're a woman. And of course the chromosomes as well. But I think biologically it's easy to define what a woman is. If you're a man, however, and believes you're a woman, that surely is a psychological issue.
Well, we don't know about that.
That's where you need the help from the medical profession. And,
some would say it isn't. Some would say that they were born that way and it's not. But, you know, I don't know anything about that because I'm not a doctor. Dr. Seshni Moodlia-Rensburg is there. She's there in Milton Keynes. So do Labour have a woman problem?
Yes, Nana, I do agree with Danny and with Christine and most of your panel today, what Julian, Brian and Lee was saying. Yes, it is concerning about the incident with Rosie Duffield and her description of it, of being domestic abuse, having threats after trying to voice her opinion and stand up for trans women and for vulnerable women. So it is a concern. I think we probably need more representation of women in the Labour. I'm not going to even comment on Keir Starmer and about the biological and the genital urinary tract and organs, because as Lee was explaining. So I think it is a concern. We do need more representation of women in Labour and in other political parties as well.
Agreed. Thank you very much. That's Ashley in Milton Keynes, Lee in Bedford, Brian in Solihull and Julie in Bridlington. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Lovely to talk to you all. Right, moving on to another story that caught my eye today. The Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, is to head a new task force that will use every available power to ensure only those in the UK can legally work, receive benefits and access public services. Now, the plans mark a return to the so-called hostile environment that was paused following the Windrush scandal. So what are your thoughts on this, Christine? Very briefly, we've got
about time too.
About time too. What about you, Danny?
I haven't got a problem with a hostile environment, as long as it's not physical. You need to make life uncomfortable for people who are here illegally. I don't see the problem.
It's not fair to the people who are here legally if they get all the benefits. I mean, I can't think why it's taken the government too long.
Do you remember about 10 years ago, the government hired a van to drive around the East End saying, like, unless you're here legally, we're going to come and get you?
They did that with the TV licences as well.
The government hired... just around the East End?
The TV van.
I don't think the licence detector vans ever existed. They
didn't. They never existed.
They never existed.
They said they were doing it.
Everybody thought they existed, but they didn't.
The detector van.
If anybody knows different, that they know that the TV vans existed.
And that's why you don't pay your licence now.
Did you know he used to work for the BBC? Right. Well, listen, and now it's time for Supplement Sunday, where my panel and I discuss some of the news stories that caught our eye. I'm joined by author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Right, let's start with Danny's supplement, which is about broadcasters facing ageism.
Talking about the BBC...
I knew I got in before you.
When I was at the BBC 15 years, I was told 6 weeks before they binned me off that the presenting lineup was too old and too white, the audience were too old and too white.
Did they say those exact words? Then?
Yes.
Male as well or not?
No, they didn't mention gender.
Well, listen,
listen, believe I've said it so many times, they would have sent me a letter saying cease and desist. It's so provable, demonstrable. Lots of employees will know this. Now, they got rid of Steve Wright. OK? Ken Bruce, who does mid-morning, right, apparently they've got rid of him, although he's managed to get it...
No, but we don't know, because he might have chosen to go to creative.
Correct. But when I was binned off, the Beeb asked me, how do you want to write your press release? Like, I want to spend time with the family, or I want to concentrate on my car business. I said, I want you to tell my listeners the truth, that you are no longer...
Anyway, what about the story?
OK, so basically,
20 seconds.
Just another note, the BBC do not care about you if you're over 50.
No, that's not true. Come on, they must care about some people.
They want the next generation of licence fee payers. They're into self-sustainability.
Well, who is...
They want younger... Well, they must so...
Who is it? I'm into self-sustainability.
Exactly, the Beeb
I want
don't
a younger
care about
man than me.
Well, apparently, I mean, Ken Bruce, 71, Radio 2 he's on, which is apparently your biggest radio station. I didn't know that.
It is,
And if he's on it quite happily and people are still listening in, what's wrong with being...
Well, listen...
I wish I was only 71.
Well, listen. Well, they're the ones that miss out on that, aren't they? Because if they've lost some very talented people. Christine, what's your one about?
Oh, well, my one, I'm terribly late to the party, but Neil and I have just recently started watching Happy Valley, and we are hooked, and we adore it, and we have finally caught up.
What is it?
Oh, it's the cop drama. Oh, you have missed out. No, I can't believe it. It is the cop drama on BBC Two, starring Sarah Lancashire as this amazing police sergeant, Catherine Catherwood. Anyway, there was a wonderful clip. She stands up, this is on the drama, she tells her officers that the bonkers edict has come in the wake of increased UFO reports. So she says that the Home Office have deemed it necessary to appoint in each division one constable as a dedicated alien life form liaison officer.
Oh, God.
Anyway, she's asked if she's serious, and she repeats it, and then she says, do I look like a comedian? Just to be clear, I think they're taking the but when we're so short-staffed, but who am I to question the wisdom of the Home Secretary? But the point is, this is the author of Happy Valley, which is an incredibly successful series, taking the mickey and making a point. The West Midlands Police hiring woke positions, 73,000
she's
a
made
year,
up, I
etc.,
get it.
etc.
I used to work in the West
You know,
Midlands.
Did you? Oh, good.
The Met Police spending $1 million a year on 23 diversity roles, etc. So this alien officer thing was
a joke.
Cocking
We love
a
it.
snoop
We love it.
at them.
Well, listen,
it's a good joke.
Well, listen, let's finally get to my story. My supplement, I've been looking forward to this. There's been a surge in the amount of severely obese people that need to be rescued by firefighters. Now, the chairman of the National Obesity Forum has warned that figures will continue to rise. So, yes, so this is really basically an incident in January which involved as many as 29 firefighters, and it took them 4 hours, basically, to get somebody trapped in their house. So
Big fat lads, why do you come to me first?
Well, what do you think of that?
After the revelation,
You have to get a hoist to get you out.
I have to reverse into the toilets. They're so narrow.
That
was a joke. No, that's a joke.
He did say that.
Of course, it's a joke. Listen, if you get to that size, then that's a different... Listen, I'm 3 stone overweight. Nana will disagree. She thinks it's 5.
Not 4.
But, you know, if you get so humongous, you need a cherry picker to come round and lift you out of your 13th floor bed sit, then you are in real trouble.
Christine,
absolutely.
You've got about 20 seconds, Christine.
And, well, it's all very well to say that it's nobody's fault that they get to that weight, but, I mean, it is. You know, there were no fat people in Belsen, for example. If you eat less, you will lose weight. Move more, eat less. It is utterly ridiculous. I don't believe they have no responsibility.
Well, I'm sure that's why they were thin in Belsen.
Well, listen, on today's show, we've been asking, should we splash out on a coronation during the cost of living crisis? According to our poll, 64% of you said yes, 36% of you said no. Well, thank you so much to my wonderful panel, author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton. Thank you very much, Christine. And also journalist Danny Kelly. Thank you, Danny. And a huge thank you to you for joining me at home. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week at 4 o'clock on Friday. I'll leave you with the weather. Enjoy.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Today and over the next few days, the UK is a bit of a battleground between cold and milder air. High pressure over Scandinavia, but stretching its way down into southeastern areas of England is holding the cold air intact here. The frontal systems, though, that are trying to push their way into the north and west are also dredging up some milder air. Milder air at this time of the year, though, is accompanied by a fair amount of cloud, and we will see some patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle continuing across southwest Scotland and other Irish Sea coastal areas overnight. Where we hold on to the clearer skies, further to the south and east, temperatures will be dropping off quite rapidly, down to -5, -4 Celsius in some towns and cities. This will be accompanied by freezing fog developing overnight. Could be quite dense in places, so do just take care where you are heading out first thing on Monday morning. Likely to linger through the morning across the likes of Cambridgeshire, but eventually clearing away to allow some brighter spells. Cloud pushing its way into Kent and areas of East Anglia. Meanwhile, the cloud over northern and western areas is going to remain fairly persistent, and it could be another largely grey day with further outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Going to stay mild in the north and west, though, highs of 9, 10 degrees Celsius here, but only around 3 degrees further to the south and east. Into Monday evening, it's a relatively similar picture, but because we've now got the cloud filtering its way into the far southeast, the frost will just hold off a bit more here, and it'll be that central slice of England where temperatures will readily drop off once again. As we move into the rest of the week, that cloud in the north and west is slowly going to push its way southwards with this frontal system. So we will eventually see some cloudier and also milder conditions across southern areas of England as we move towards the middle of the week. Behind that cold front, though, we will see an ingress of some slightly colder air, so temperatures will fall off a bit for the likes of Edinburgh and Belfast, but not too cold, more around average for the time of year by the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday. See you later.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome to Glory Me's. We've got 3 fantastic political interviews with a difference. It's the Greater Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham.
In that moment, Whitehall did not like us answering back, but they're going to have to get used to it. The North is not going back to the way we were treated before.
It's the Conservative MP, Jackie Doyle-Price.
So I'm sick of hearing about focus groups. You know, Margaret Thatcher never bothered with focus groups because she knew what she wanted to do.
It's the former Conservative leader, Ian Duncan Smith.
One of them, which they couldn't prove who it was, attacked me by slamming a very heavy cone which has grit inside it and everything else.
All that after your news.
Good evening, I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. Investigations are continuing in California after at least 10 people were killed in a shooting at a Lunar New Year festival. Thousands of people had gathered at Monterey Park near Los Angeles when a gunman opened fire. Another 10 people were taken to hospital, with at least one in a critical condition. The LA County Sheriff says a male suspect fled the scene and remains at large.
Very preliminary description has been described as a male Asian. We're interviewing victims and witnesses. We've gotten different descriptions of one suspect. So when I say it's preliminary, please again, be patient with us. We are here to tell you that we are utilizing every resource to apprehend this suspect in what we believe to be one of the county's most heinous cases.
Labour's calling for an urgent investigation into claims the chairman of the BBC